Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam. Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. It is a very exciting day for me. We are later on this afternoon, we are going to our second Java with Jimmy on the waterfront. And so we are excited about that. And the team decided we were going to do a panel this evening, and the team decided, hey, let's focus on fun being on the waterfront in Moakley Park and on Carson Beach later on today. And so we decided to move the panel to this morning. Usually the Coalition for a Resilient and Inclusive Waterfront comes on the second Wednesdays, but we thought it was better to move it until this Wednesday. And so I am excited today to bring my guests into the room. All three of them are no strangers to the Java Cafe. All three of them have spoken to various issues around diversity, inclusion, and resilience from a mental health space, from an inclusion space, from a Black joy space. And we're going to further the conversation. This isn't anything new. I'm excited to have my button on to represent the coalition this morning. And so without further ado, I'd like to present to some and introduce to others. First, we're going to start with Jay Makem. They are here from Boston Harbor Now, and also Dr. Ronke Pedersen, who is from Massachusetts General Hospital as well, and no stranger. And my hands just started sweating as I get ready to click him in because we don't know how he's going to get me today. It's all family and love here, and y'all know Uncle Thaddeus well. Thaddeus T. Miles is what I call him. And so we're excited to have all three of them here with us today. We're going to ask you to go ahead and hit that share button and invite others into the conversation. One of the things we're going to talk about today is public health and why the waterfront is important and why inclusion. And so I'm going to ask my guests to get ready to introduce themselves. I'll start with the order on my screen. Jay, if you could introduce yourself first, and if you could sort of do a virtual icebreaker. How are you feeling today in reference to the Community Day and Cookout?
For sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jay Meekum, they, them pronouns. I am the Community Engagement Manager at Boston Harbor Now. I'm really excited to be here with all of you today. And I'm very excited for this evening. I love Moakley Park and Carson Beach a lot. It's a great spot, and I am extremely excited to get to hang out there with everyone.
And I just want to say thanks for all the things you've done in the background, helping to make that happen in both of those spaces. I'm going to go ahead with Uncle Thaddeus, who is not a stranger, but Uncle, please introduce yourself and how do you feel about this evening?
Well, of course, they know I'm Thaddeus, Uncle Thaddeus. How I feel about this evening is I'm hating because I can't be there, right? So I got a lot of hate. And right now, I'm trying to lose weight, so I ain't trying to deal with no hot dogs, hamburgers, and that charcoal grill smell, making me hungry. But I'm loving it for the community.
Absolutely.
Other than that, I am the Senior Director of Diversity Initiatives at Mass Housing, founder of Hood Fit, Road to Wellness, and the Black Joy Initiative. And it's good to be here, nephew.
And you snuck something on us online that I didn't know about, that you have a journal coming out soon. And we'll talk about that later.
Cool.
Dr. Ronke, it has been a while. Welcome, Jay. I see the red cup. Jay. I see it. Dr. Ronke, good morning. Please greet the folks. And how do you feel about this evening's event as well?
Yeah, so happy to be here. Pleasure to be here. I'm a psychiatrist at Mass General and an assistant professor at Harvard Medical School. I spend a lot of my time thinking about how to improve mental health services and have us be more engaged in mental health services as Black people in the community, and thinking about underserved communities when we're thinking about our healthcare systems. So that's what I spend a lot of my time doing. And in terms of the waterfront, I'm really excited for everyone who can go. I am like 36 weeks pregnant right now. And so food is such a big part of my life. And I wish I could be there. But even just moving right now is a task.
Well, Dr. Ronke, we appreciate you being here in the midst of this wonderful miracle about to happen in a few weeks. We thank you so much for being here. We're going to jump right in. And I'm going to ask Uncle Thaddeus first to speak to I'm excited around the intentionality of us going back to Carson Beach and Moakley Park. It's been an interesting history being from the city, being a Black man in the city. And the coalition really moves to have a natural sort of inclusion, diverse programming, and just awareness of the waterfront. But in the context of us going back to Carson Beach and what the cruise mission is, Uncle Thaddeus, how do you feel about just the fact of us going to Carson Beach, having a cookout?
Well, I think the first thing, I'm not from here, being from Virginia Beach, myself, being able to have access to the water all the time, in Virginia Beach. And here, the history of Carson Beach, the city of Boston, and Black folks is unique, and in some ways contributed to what I heard when I was first coming to Boston. Was like it's one of the most racist places in the universe, if not the most racist places. And I think Carson Beach and the activities there, and I don't want to get too much into them because that'll take the whole show, and the history of it, contributed to a lot of that. And so as we started to talk about change, belonging, inclusion, because inclusion is not just being invited, it's actually feeling like you belong there. Then there's a uniqueness to today being able to have everybody, the diaspora, and the uniqueness of it. But I also think sometimes when we say inclusion and we say diversity and we say belonging, that we also don't talk about the LGBTQIA community also being on that beach. And the uniqueness of what that looks like and feels like, and being able to feel comfortable there, in that space. So it's an important moment. We think of it as a cookout, and we think that a lot of things have been resolved, but the reality is they haven't. And this is the first step into the process of healing, and healing at the broader community and the broader diaspora of Blackness.
I appreciate that, Uncle. And you tapped in because I was going to jump to Jay and ask. We talk about, BIPOC, marginalized communities, Black and brown, but we both are part of the LGBTQ plus community. And Uncle Thaddeus really set it up for that question. When we talk about inclusion, it's not just about race and ethnicity. It's about everyone feeling welcome. So can you speak to the point that Thaddeus raised as well? And also, we are supporters and partners in the work of the coalition, but your full-time job is there helping folks utilize. And so if you could sort of mix in, I know it's a lot, but I know you got it. Can you mix in what Uncle Thaddeus raised, what I was going to raise? And also you're there seeing this change that he speak to. It hasn't completed itself yet, but where are we?
For sure. I mean, I think starting off, could never say that a change was complete, right? Like we can start with that. I think that, as Thaddeus said, like this space is needed to be welcome for everyone. And I think setting the stage right, some people might not actually understand where this is. So Carson Beach and Moakley Park, technically located in South Boston, but literally right on the edge of Dorchester and within, miles and minutes of 5 other neighborhoods, right? So, it's the largest waterfront park in all of Boston. Seems like a pretty important resource for people to be able to enjoy. And I think, I have been working in this role for 2 years. So, 2 years ago, started kicking off some programming in this area. And I was able to learn a lot from other organizations and community leaders who have been doing programming. But I think one of the things that we found, keep coming back to this, it's not surprising, is that people want a space where they can experience joy and safety and community, right? And like most likely that's going to happen if there's food and music and good vibes, right? And so sometimes it can take a lot of work to make a really good program and to hopefully help create the space for people to be welcome. And other times we understand that, like, me as a queer person, I know that if I'm going to a space where like some of those things are taken care of, right? And I'm not going to have to navigate, 90 plus acres of a space to figure out, where can I enjoy myself? Where might I feel okay? That's part of the point, right, of community cookouts. It's sort of just setting the stage. And hopefully, the next time someone can just bring their friend and come back, and you can help reinforce and create those positive experiences in those spots. I think that my hope is that people come to experience Moakley Park and Carson Beach as their community parks, right? That they have a right to be there. It is for everyone, and that they get to have some stewardship over it. And I think that, the work that the coalition is doing, the work that you're doing, Jimmy, and so many other partners is aimed at that.
And that is absolute. Dr. Ronke just texted and said that she's going to hop back on. She's going to kind of speak to the public health piece of this and sort of the mental health piece. But I know both of you, though not clinicians, are apt. Uncle Thaddeus, you referred to the fact that you are on this journey as far as being healthier. Can you speak to the physicality of use and access to the waterfront, and also for you? Do you put on your headphones? Do you go and listen to music, or do you just listen to the sounds of the water? How does the water help you in your health journey?
Well, I think two things. One is, so a few weeks ago, I posted a reel of an early morning of me being on the beach.
Yeah.
And, you got some of the little sand blowing around, and it's my most liked reel of everything. And what I said was that some mornings it's just nice to get up and listen to God's orchestra, right? And live in your own silence. And so when we think about mindfulness, when we think of the opportunity to do self-reflection, when we think about the opportunity to renew our spirit within ourselves, that is one of the ways that I'm able to do that. Being around the water helps me to reduce the stress and anxiety that I may be feeling. It also is the physical activity. I live here, in Lowell, and I live right on the river. So any morning I can look out and see the flow of the water and know that I can allow, and sometimes I take the time to stop and pray and allow those challenges that I'm facing to flow down the river with the water, right? To leave me and flow to wherever they're going. But we also have a small park that's right by, that's probably a half a mile from my house that I can walk to, that has a lot of, has the what do you call it, the bench press, all of these different tools to be able to actually exercise in and to stretch and relax. But the other thing I think the most about is that walking path and being connected in the water is that social connectivity, right? It's that ability to be able to connect, because as humans, that's something that we need, right? We might not always want it, and it depends on who we're connecting to. But that space and that beach is something that I don't see a lot of angry people on the beach and on the water. I see people really laughing, enjoying themselves, seeing kids navigating. I don't see that anger in other pieces. But I go back to, for me, it's the inspiration and the reflection moments that I have to be able to release when I first arrive, to allow me to enjoy it and to be able to tap into that Black joy. That is really the piece that helps me be able to speak my truth with courage.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because for some that just may be elementary, but I thought about when you said you never saw angry people on the beach. And I literally, Miami, other places, I'm like, yeah, you never really see any angry people on the beach. And so thank you for raising that. Dr. Ronke is back with us. Dr. Ronke, when the computer froze, we talked about inclusion and diversity, and you have often talked about it. Jay named some historical things, Carson Beach. Uncle Thaddeus talked about, Boston's history. Can you generally speak to, from a mental health and wellness standpoint, when when they generally feel welcome and accepted, what does that do for their mental health?
Yeah, that's such an important question. And as I'm listening, in between things as my computer froze, one of the things I've been thinking about is symbolism and how there's a juxtaposition, between this idea of like the symbol and then the actual concrete, sort of practical benefit of something.
Mm,
So as human beings, we like symbols. So as we're talking about the waterfront and our presence there and belonging, there's this sense of, it's not just about saying, having a sign up that says, you're welcome, or having a memo that goes out that says everyone is welcome on the waterfront. We just want to, how organizations always have a statement, right, that says, we're an inclusive organization, and all of these things. But it's beyond just the sign itself that says you're welcome. But as Uncle Thaddeus, is it okay if I call you Uncle Thaddeus too? Has been sharing too. It's really about this sense of belonging, and belonging is not something you can get from a sign. Belonging is something that is deep within us that we feel, and it's not just a superficial feeling. It's this sense of home, like where you can just show up somewhere and you feel like you can be fully yourself, your authentic self. And I think for us as Black people, there's this sense of, even when people say you're welcome, you can be in this space and all of that, we have to put on a face and put on a different sort of persona, and wear a mask in a sense, in order to be accepted. But that's not real acceptance, because this sense of belonging is really about the symbol of it, which is us. I think the cookout is sort of like a symbol, right? Like we're showing up, we're there, and then the deeper experience. And I think Uncle Thaddeus, you use the word healing. And I think that's where you're really hitting on belonging, because it's connected to this sense of healing, that I'm not just here and having to put on a mask. I'm here in my authentic true self, and I'm being accepted. And that's another question as to who's the accepting party, and all of that. And I think in many ways it's sort of like the soul of America, whatever that is, right? Like really accepting us and making us feel, and I'm not saying white people, I'm saying something deeper than that, that the soil, the ground, and the earth, like the water, all of these things, we have a sense of belonging to it. And so that for me connects to mental health.
Yes.
Because in a lot of ways, a lot of our trauma comes from being rejected, feeling unloved, feeling separated, right, or isolated. Like when you talk about the symptoms of something like depression, we're talking about isolation. We're talking about something we call hypersensitivity to rejection, like where you've been rejected so many times and you just feel like it's normal to be rejected. And so when we're talking about all of these different sort of environmental symbols, we're really talking about, all of these very basic aspects of what it means to be human. And part of our humanity is family, like our community. And I think for us as Black people, community runs so deep. When you talk about the diaspora, and like when you think about what it means to be a Black person anywhere in the world, there's a sense of community that's deep within us. So yes, history was taken away in a lot of ways from Black people who were brought to this country and enslaved, but there are aspects of what's within our DNA as Black people that I think continues to be important in communities. So when I'm thinking about the cookout, I'm thinking about it from this perspective of the symbol of what what we're seeing, the image,
Yep.
but then also the deep connection that then can happen, bringing us, to what Uncle Thaddeus was talking about around healing and how that then impacts kind of our mental health.
Absolutely. And I saw Jay jumping in a few times, and they were getting excited about some of the things that you were saying, because they spoke to a little bit, not in the exact words, but Jay, you spoke to sort of the things that are givens, the feeling safe, the music, the DJ. But then Dr. Ronke took a little bit deeper about the only thing I can think of is the essence in what that inclusivity, that one, including people, looks like. And so if you wanted to respond to that, what Dr. Ronke said, I'm sure Uncle Thaddeus wants to respond. And then I want to go into sort of some of the bigger picture, because there is the acceptance and the access and going in the space, but then there's a lot going on in the background around environmental justice and design of waterfronts to, address issues with climate change. And so if both of you maybe want to take a minute or so and just respond to what Dr. Ronke said, and then we're going to get into a little bit of the bigger picture of how all of us need to stay involved with what's going on the waterfront.
For sure. Thank you so much. Dr. Ronke, I really appreciate, I love coming here to learn from people. It's so exciting. I think, especially as a person who has lived with mental health challenges, part of the reason that I love the work I get to do is because, I moved from a space where I worked 80 hours a week to come work on community program and building relationships, right, in green and blue spaces. And, personally, I could see the impact within weeks, right? Just the ability to be outside, whether that was Moakley Park, whether it was Carson Beach, whether it was an island. And so, for me, as a person who has done mental health advocacy in high school through community organizing and engagement, there's a joy in getting to this space of being yes, we care about community. We really care about youth's mental well-being, right? There's, obviously y'all can even speak more to this. There's a huge crisis with young people and them not feeling welcome, right? Them not being able to build good relationships, not having access to adults and other people that they can talk to and interact with. And so I think one of the things I'm considering is, this community cookout is tonight, and starting in a couple weeks, we'll be starting 7 weeks of Wednesday activations, right? We're working with MADCR, for the same thing, right? Creating a space where hopefully, 200 youth can come, enjoy time with themselves, build community, be fed, hopefully learn some things, and ultimately, hopefully they fall in love with the place and they come back, right? And they can continue to build that community in a space, because ultimately, right, it is a little bit of the chicken or the egg. For sure, a welcome sign doesn't make everything different. However, if the only signs you see are no, don't swim, don't bring your dog, don't eat, and only in one language, then how are you going to feel welcome? So, right, it's sort of the combination of all of those things, which is part of why I really love getting to work with the coalition, because there's a holistic view of all the things that people need to be able to have an accessible or inclusive waterfront space. Thaddeus, I feel like you have so many fantastic things to say.
Go ahead, Uncle.
Yeah.
But Jay, you said something, and so that is, I'm on a two-part. You finished there, and then I'm going to go back to something Jay said based on what we heard Dr. Rufus Falk say the other day. But go ahead, Uncle.
Yeah, I think so. I've dealt with my own depression. I can still work and do all of those other things, but there's still those points of isolation, the issues of COVID, right? That force that isolation that I still deal with, right? Because I became comfortable in those spaces, right? And living in my growth zone, which is the uncomfortable quadrant, right, is something that at times I still fear. But I do want to say two things. I just want to give you go back to the history point. So I came here in 1985 in the U.S. Air Force, and Carson Beach is one of the places I was not allowed to go. From the military standpoint, I could not go into South Boston, right? There were 3 places I couldn't go. I couldn't go the combat zone, right? This is what we were told when we first got here. I couldn't go into South Boston, including Carson Beach or any of those other things, and I couldn't go on Blue Hill Ave, right? So there's this whole perspective, you know, what I mean, of what military pieces are. But I want to make sure, and I know we're getting into that with the next aspect, is that we don't forget when we talk about inclusion that we talk about those with disabilities, whether it's you know, because we're talking a little bit around some of those mental challenges, right, of healing. But there's the things, those with visual disabilities, those with hearing disabilities. So you can say a sign, but can you see the sign, right? And so, you know, and can you hear the music, right? Can you hear the words, right, that are coming out? You know, so when we talk about music, it's like, for me, it's like, is it inclusive music? Right? People, been invited to parties, and you know, I'm like, I don't want to be listening to this, right? You know what I mean? That's I'm gonna pull out my phone and can I connect with a few songs, right?
You got a
But
Bluetooth?
it's right, but it's also the thing of like, can we dance? Is it okay to dance in my wheelchair? You know what I mean? Can I be in those spaces? The way I look at belonging, can I be uniquely me and still be valued with my contributions to that? And I think that's the most important part when we start to think about any of this aspect of healing or mental health, right? If I'm in a space where I'm challenged that day, right? Can I still make myself available? Or can I not have to smile, give you the big daddy's smile and give you the big daddy's hug and still be welcome, right? Can I just give you a pound and that be enough, right? So it's some things that we still, so as we're looking at all of this, I just want to bring that back, right? That we have a tendency when we talk about diversity and inclusion to not actually include those with other disabilities.
Thank you so much for naming that, because I'm sitting here thinking I'm doing well. And we, you know, we talk about diversity and inclusion a lot of times as a Black man. We think Black and brown, BIPOC people. Then we were very intentional about the diaspora, the multiplicity of the LGBTQ plus community. But thank you for intentionally naming the importance of ensuring that we are not just ADA compliant, but actually intentional about, and Jay, we did the walkthrough. And to be transparent, we didn't even articulate, we may have thought it, but if someone comes that's in a wheelchair, if someone comes and needs assistance that is visually impaired. So uncle, thank you for naming that. If I could just deviate for 1 second based on something that Jay brought out. And when they said that, I was like, our young people. Dr. Falk the other day at the brunch, Uncle Thaddeus, talked about each generation gets so far, and then sometimes the next has to start from zero. Based on what Jay said, and the changing that's going on, how important is it that we create this environment where our young people may be aware of the history, but don't have to live it?
Well, they might not have to live it, but they need to feel it.
Okay.
Right. So I'm gonna leave it at that, and then move on to the next thing.
Okay. We're gonna leave that. Uncle says he's gonna leave that. We'll move on to the next thing. Jay, I wanted to come back.
Can I just add to that?
Yes.
They have to feel it. I 100% agree, just because a lot of times history will repeat itself in one form or the other. And if we don't understand, there's really no culture out there that does well without understanding its history, not just superficially, but at a deep level. And when you think about whether we're talking about the Jewish genocide or, you know, the Rwandan genocide or whatever it is, history is so critical to moving forward. And so I think for young people, there's a sense, especially, you know, in this digital age, to kind of think about what's the next new thing. How can I get, you know, understand that thing really quick, you know, in 30 seconds, you know, what's the 30-second version of everything? And I think we have to be really careful, because as I'm not an elder yet, but I will be one of those elders who's like, you know, you have to get back to the basics and to your roots, because if you're going to move forward, whether it's the digital age or whatever it is, it can't happen effectively without understanding history. And that's what we're wrestling with in this country right now, is people trying to sort of tease apart and, be selective, about what history we learn and understand. But I think it's so critical.
Thank both of you for that. And that's a good segue to come back to Jay to talk about. There is history and herstory in a lot of cases being made right now. The waterfronts across the nation, across the world to some extent, based on what's going on with the impact of climate change. And from an environmental justice standpoint, we talk about diversity and inclusion and resilience. How important is it that we stay aware of the plans that are going on? What, community meetings, public announcements, like how important is it that you move in that space? That's your full-time and sort of life passion to do this. And so, you get the emails, you're in those, groups. How do we ensure that folks that aren't so closely connected, how do we ensure that they're aware to participate? And then how important is it also that when we are aware, we lend our voice to this there's a lot of development going on in different seaports and waterfronts.
For sure. I'm not sure public meetings are my life passion. However,
no, not the public meetings, being about being at Boston Harbor.
No, but I do think, what you were saying, especially in that last bit of, how do people get to have their voices heard, right? I think ultimately when we're talking about development occurring, whether it's like Dorchester Bay City, whether it is, right along the water, whether it is the redevelopment of Moakley Park, all of those things, right? Ultimately, the goal for engagement is not to say, great, we talked to 100 people, let's go ahead, right? Like full steam ahead. For me, and a lot of the ways that, I work with the City of Boston and the Parks and Rec Department, we're really working to make feedback as easy as possible for the community. So that means we do it in a bunch of different ways, right? Because we know that everyone doesn't have access to the same things. And honestly, sometimes even more. Sometimes that there's a community where you're like, flyering works really, like it works better here, or maybe a Facebook event here, maybe a Google form here, right? And so part of the work of being in community is learning from the people there who say, like, this is what my community cares about, and this is how we need to have our voices heard. And my role, or a way that I look at my role, is great. How easily can I facilitate that for you? How can I get you what you need? Because when it comes down to it, whether you can go to the public meeting or you send me an email or you tell me and I write it down, right? Like the point is that your voice gets put into what the changes are. I think that there is a lot of ways that it's very confusing what the process of building and redevelopment is, right? You talk about, public opinions. And I think there are many times, especially for young people, where you're like, do you really care if I share content with you today? Does it matter at all? And I think one of the interesting things about being in this role is that I can see that it does. Sometimes it's hard to get the information to the people who are making the decisions, but especially when you get to work with extra partners who continually say, what does the community want? What does the community need? Who are the thousands of people as climate change impacts all over Boston, but especially Carson Beach and Moakley Park, right? Who are the thousands of people who live in public housing who are directly going to be impacted by this? And how do we make sure that they understand what is happening with their park? And how do we make sure that they get to say what they want? And honestly, it just requires a lot of time. You can't go in and do it magically. And then it requires consistent change because everyone evolves.
Consistency definitely stood out there with everything else that you said. And I like how you brought up the different ways. There's social media. Dr. Ronke was talking about as we progress. I think even in how we make folk aware, we have to do the historical things, old school flyering, door knocking, even over to the tweets and boosting on Facebook and whatnot. Uncle, I wanted to ask you as we get ready shortly to wrap up. You and I have had conversations before, publicly and offline, about the importance of, yes, as our brother Conan says, we belong everywhere.
No, we belong everywhere.
We got to get this clip to him. there is the other part of the trauma and historical context of why some folks, no matter the purity of intention, the multiple signs in Braille, if we did everything quote unquote, maybe not right, but with the spirit of excellence, there are some that may feel I'm just not gonna because of the historical context. How do we balance taking that leap when there is pure intentionality of inclusion and diversion and not not wallowing, not
No,
saying,
I got you, nephew.
go ahead. Yep.
So I think the one key component that we always forget to talk about when we talk about public education, you know what I mean, as far as like the waterfront and pieces, is that it's a trust building exercise. And that trust doesn't come overnight. And I can't trust you to the point of where I'm going to invite you in my home the first moment I meet you. And so what you do over time will make that I will make that decision whether I can invite you in my home or whether I'd be willing to go to your home, right? Because it is not about you. And I think sometimes when we process this, and what you're saying is we can't get people to come in, is because we're taking it personal. Yeah. Right. And this is not a personal thing. This is 200 years of not being welcome. This is your great grandparents, great grandparents, your parents saying that it's not a welcoming space and it's not going to change. So a young person to be able to feel that is different than just going out there and just hanging out. Going out with purpose is different. You know, they'll come out and hang out.
Yep.
But if you're talking about coming out and actually learning and having some purpose, then it's got to be meaningful to me.
That's right.
And what I think is if the waterfront staffing organizations and all go with what I would call, because I was thinking about this last night, I came up with 4 different agreements. If they sort of move through those things, and the first is prioritize inclusivity and equity, right? Being inclusive and equity, to consider the unique needs of every perspective of different communities in all decisions, right? To foster open dialogues, promote open, respectful communication among all stakeholders, value each voice and perspective, be adaptable and innovative, right? Stay flexible, open to change and innovation in the dynamic field of water management. And I think the last thing is advocate for water as a fundamental right, right? Because we think about it a different way. Uphold and advocate for the principles to access to clean, safe water and as a basic human right, right? And if you're doing those things, and if you're sticking to those 4 agreements as an organization, as a broader organization, and as an individual that is representing those organizations, because James, you are one. I am one because I'm here. I'm validating something about what's happening just by being here and speaking to it. Then we need to have some agreements that we're functioning off as a whole so that they can understand it. Right now, we're talking about a broad aspect of things, right? And so when we talk about this to anybody that you want to invite in your home, I need to be able to tell them in a quick and simple way, here are the 4 things that I'm focused on. Here are the 3 things that I'm focused on as a holistic aspect of what we're doing. But I need you, when you are ready, to be able to walk into this home and that you will be valued, your voice will be valued, and we are open to whatever it is that you have to say in whatever way you have to say it. And that I will not take it personally, but I will be able to absorb it and listen and hear and be able to come back to you with something that has substance for you to be able to chew on and that will feed and nourish you as you move forward in this process.
This is one of the reasons why I love this man, because away from the waterfront, Dr. Ronke talked about it, Jay talked about it. You basically set a model for and Dr. Ronke, we talked yesterday, for for these studies and research and whatnot. Like, you laid out a 4-tier process that really exemplifies real inclusion. And I want to, because some of these words are becoming sexy and trendy. And so it at some point, can you text or email that to me? And I'm sure Tracy and them are going to ask for it as well. Because take out the word waterfront and you can put transportation. You can put education. You could put clinical trials, Dr. Ronke. All right, y'all are getting ready to get me started, and it's 9:44. And so we're going to get ready to start to wrap up. And so, Dr. Ronke, again, from a mental health standpoint, kind of based on what Thaddeus said, how important is it that leaders and stakeholders that tend to be the more resourceful in decision making, how important is it that they be intentional in considering the impact if they're disingenuous? And how important is it that they intentionally go for a genuine intentionality to really do everything that Uncle Thaddeus and Jay talked about a few minutes ago?
First of all, it's always impressive to me when you ask a question as to what I was thinking. And I'm like, that's how you know.
A lot of that went on in here today. Those affirmations are real. Yes. Thank you.
That's how you know someone is good at their craft, where you're just like, how is he reading my mind? So when I was just thinking about, my brother is a commercial real estate. He has his own company and he does a lot of, large projects in the Midwest. And, we talk about how much intentionality goes into building out different city blocks or different, portion, like when you're thinking about how different things are constructed. And we know that there are very intentional things that have gone into, where this place is located, where that place is located. When you walk into a building, what you see, the first thing you see, where the bathrooms are located, how the bathrooms are organized, all of these things. And I think when you talk about stakeholders and, these questions about, what are some things like leaders and stakeholders can do? And I think about what Uncle Thaddeus laid out. It's, sort of like before you even get considered for that project, because these are big projects that people are making a lot of money off of when they get these contracts, to redesign this or do this, within the city and on the lakefront. And so really making sure at that executive meeting on the front end, before someone gets given a project, you lay out Uncle Thaddeus's, metrics, then you say, are you doing this? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And really very concrete understanding of how this person intends to make sure people with disabilities are included, how this person intends to make sure, because there are things, even as a Black woman, I can walk into a space and I can tell from the environment really quickly who this space was intended for. So the intentionality piece, I think we have the technology now, right, to be able to think very critically about our spaces, to change how we construct these spaces. And I hope, that when we're thinking about our leaders and our stakeholders, that it's not an afterthought, because I think a lot of times the Google form, the, flyers and all those things go out after the commercial real estate person has been given the contract, they've signed with some architect, they've decided on a lot of things. And then they're like, yeah, I guess we could add like a little, room over there that says, dedicated to Martin Luther King Jr. And hopefully that will make people feel welcome. Or we can have, add a little access. You have to go all around the building to get access to like the front door, if you're someone in a wheelchair. So all of those things, I think we have to shift so that from day one, we're not thinking about it as an afterthought. And that affects people's mental health. When you walk into a space and you can tell that it was not designed for you, that feeling of, I don't belong here. We come back to where we started. I don't belong here. Like, it wasn't made for me. And so no matter what sort of like correcting afterwards you're trying to do, it's always going to be the original intent was not for me.
That I see Uncle Thaddeus and Jay were both like, okay, I'm trying to figure out which way to go here. Jay, I'm going to ask you to end just because I want to end on what we're doing this evening. And then if we end with Uncle Thaddeus, I won't be able to log off. We'll just be all laid out here because he's just going to slay us. So Uncle, if you could get ready to just give us some sort of closing remarks. We know you're not able to be with us this evening, but based on today's convo, based on your awareness of the coalition, and based on even your curation around Black Joy, like if you could speak to everyone that's going to be there this evening, what is it that if you were doing a welcome this evening, I'm going to put Uncle on the spot. If you were doing the welcome this evening, what would you say that will be inclusive of everything that we talked about today? I love you, Uncle.
You just confused me. You said you were going to Jay first, so I'm gonna let you go to Jay
No.
first.
All right, Jay, you've been heavily involved with a lot of what's going on this evening. I'm excited about it. Java with Jimmy on the waterfront. There's just what can we expect? What are we feeling this evening? Jay, the eyebrows. Tell us.
For sure. Quick thing first. I think that, people have been talking about accessibility. And so I did want to mention really quickly the physical space.
Yes.
So Carson Beach is accessible via wheelchairs, especially the area we'll be doing the community cookout in. Both the dance area, the food, and the bathroom. So anyone with crutches or a wheelchair or cane, those all are pretty good. Mowgli Park is a little bit rockier, but definitely, there's lots of, you can ask for contact information for folks, and we're happy to make sure people can use the space. But it is so important. I think people know when you walk into a space, as Dr. Ronke said, if it's not meant for them. And, super sadly, there's not like gender neutral bathrooms, right? So that's like, this is just another thing. But I think, tonight is going to be great. I think people can expect, you can come to Mowgli Park starting in the afternoon. We're going to have some really fun art and music activations with a tribe called Funk, as well as a lot of other mini activities and art projects. And then honestly, I think the cookout at Carson is just going to be loads of fun. There's going to be delicious free food. You can do yoga with Trill Fit. It's going to be really fantastic.
I'm excited about it. And again, Jay, thank you and everybody that was Boston Harbor Now and others that were part of putting this together. Dr. Ronke, I just wanted to thank you as well for your last statement. And it was interesting because you went a little bit clinical, but you went more into policy and humanity of just people just being considered. It's so in real time, I'm thinking about this, that how I don't understand how people intentionally don't, well, I do to some extent, don't want to include everybody, but from a humanity standpoint, it just, it gnaws at you. You know what I mean? There's systemic racism and we understand all of that and gender biases and things like that. But it just, when it comes to humanity, it baffles me that we as a society, after being in a world pandemic, some of our ways haven't changed. And I need to be careful because I don't want to set Uncle Thaddeus up too much and then we'll all be laid out. Talk about, Jimmy, you need to hit the end button. Uncle Thaddeus, we're going to ask you to give the benediction, closing remarks, and send us on it. He said, uh-oh.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing for me is I learned a lot today. And I'm thankful for both of you for your words, because they were truly uplifting and brought a lot of clarity. So I just want to say that, because this isn't about me just sharing. This was a little bit broader. That Jimmy, I want to thank you for bringing this importance subject to us and to our community, because there's a lot of things forgotten that you're raising with your voice. But now that you got a new TV show, you're broadening yourself a little bit. So I'm gonna leave all that alone.
Thank you.
But I think the other thing is some people may not recognize me at this moment, because usually I'm up here cracking jokes, right? And laughing and smiling. And people have to take the substance of what I was saying and they have to figure it out, right? It's like, But for me, this is what was important, right? So I wanted to give it the importance and the respect and the dignity that it deserves as a subject, and be serious about it. So I think that's the first thing. But I found it interesting is because I actually wrote something, because I felt like if I showed up, and I wrote this a while back, that you were gonna have me do some welcome or something else, that y'all were gonna do something. So this is good. So I'm gonna read what
Okay, did he just do what we did about the
yeah,
All
I
right,
think
I'm
me
gonna
and
give
the doctor are on the good doctor is on the same boat about like, what is he thinking? So I'm gonna just do a little reading of what I thought in my new sort of Black Joy Warrior thought process. Is It's welcome to our vibrant waterfront, where the harmony of nature meets the heartbeat of our community. Here, the whispering waves offer relaxation, the open skies inspire dreams, and the endless horizon invites exploration. This is a place for everyone to enjoy, where each of us has a role in its protection and its future. So let's celebrate our shared connection to this beautiful waterway, welcome and cherish each moment in the embrace of nature's bounty.
So you
Yeah.
more than most know, Uncle, that it ain't often I don't have something to say. And so can you send me that too, please?
I think people don't recognize that, you and I have these conversations, and you and I and very few actually have gotten to explore the creative side of who I am,
Yes.
because I've always had to push out. I think the way the good doctor was talking about some of the masks that I wear, that creative exploration of me is just starting to come out now that I'm in this Black Joy Warrior mode,
Mhm.
versus just saying Black Joy, but actually making it a essential part of who I am, and taking my own history and moving it forward. So as I explore that, and as I start to try to be a little bit more creative in that space, I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to say those words and to express it here today. Um, you know, I look forward to seeing you, giving a pound and a hug.
Yes, sir.
And good doctor, uh, congratulations. It's bringing another beautiful Black soul into this world, that's an ordinary individual that's capable of doing extraordinary things. I'm looking forward to. And Jay, the uh, your clarity on yesterday's email lifted my soul. And it's not something for us to talk about, but it was nice to see that and to correct that. But it was nicer that I knew what it was,
Yep.
because it says how far I've come as an individual, and learning about a community that I have not always been tapped into. So thank you.
Jay, if I'm looking and it's not the pixelating on the screen, we both are sitting here kind of like moist-eyed and trying to get it together. So we'll get off of here. Waterfront, we have waterfronts right here. I love each of you, and I appreciate all of the contributions that you make to this platform in the past, presently, and even ongoing. And even though Ronke and Dr. Ronke and Uncle, I won't be able to see you this evening. I am leaving full with a lot of what we were able to share. We just changed society in this conversation. That social construction that happens via conversations is a perfect example today. So everybody that heard, that listened, next time the subject comes up about accessibility, even in other spaces of workspaces and even people's home design. We talked about people being welcome in homes. Well, how can you welcome me into your home and there's not a ramp to get there, or you don't have braille on the bell for me to know that it's number? So we went in a whole couple of different spaces. But I appreciate all of you. I'm going to go pay a couple of bills. And then I'll see Jay. I'll see you this evening. And Dr. Ronke and Uncle Thaddeus, thank you both so much for your contributions today and just period, and Jay as well. And That's it for this segment. I'm going to go pay some bills. Thank all three of you. You all put your appreciation, likes, and love in the comments, and we'll see each of you when we see you soon. Thank you all. Oh, wow. You all, listen, that was one of our craziest, most impactful, thoughtful, passionate Waterfront Wednesday episodes since we've been doing it since last year. More consistent this year every month. And so shout out to the crew team and everybody. Some of them are there in the background. Today was powerful, and just the way it ended, and for Thaddeus to have that welcome ready, because he knows if he was there today, I would probably call him to say something. So don't forget, this evening at 3 p.m., it is not too late to register. I see the Davis team is here in the system. The link is right here. You can go to Eventbrite to join, to sign up, to let us know that you're coming. But I thank you all so much for being with us. Past couple of weeks have been interesting. Today is one of the last 3 major events that I had in June. And for those that know me, y'all know I've been saying, if I could just make it to the end of June, this is the second to last one. We got one next Friday with the mayor's office and some young people, and launching a whole public health and wellness campaign designed by and driven by young people, thanks to a partnership with the Boston Public Health Commission. So we'll have more information about that soon. Eric, brother, I appreciate you every time you're in here, man. And I know you were coming up here sometime soon. So please let me know. And I thank you and appreciate you. Thank all of you for tuning in. Don't forget today, Moakley Park, 3:30 p.m. Come. Registration is ideal and desired, but I don't think we're going to deny anybody that comes. This is an inclusive and welcoming place. And so we thank all of you for being here with us. And love you, Uncle Thaddeus. I received the love and support in the comments. Absolutely. Absolutely. Have a great day, everybody. And we'll see you. Today's Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And also, don't forget, tomorrow at 12:30 p.m., we will be going live from Boston Public Market, making some announcements down there. They are awarding someone a year's free worth of rent down at Boston Public Market. And we have the privilege and honor of making that announcement here in the Java Cafe with Boston Public Market. So please don't forget to join us at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and also at 12:30 p.m. live from Boston Public Market. Have a great day, everybody. And we'll see you this evening at Moakley Park and also Carson Beach for Java with Jimmy on the waterfront.